Well, hello everyone. It's Val. I'm gonna drink my coffee during this video. We're going through this together while we have our coffee. How about that? My glasses are smudged. I'm a hot mess. I do not ever, it is 10:30 in the morning. I don't record at this time, generally speaking. I usually record in the afternoon or the evening. But I'm mad. So an article came out yesterday in the Boston Globe, which I will link in the description, even though they have a paywall, so you might not be able to read it, that said that the efforts to repeal our trans protections in the state of Massachusetts are not only on the ballot in the fall, but are potentially going to be one of the closer races. A new survey shows one of the most competitive battles on the Massachusetts ballot this fall may be a question on whether to repeal the state's anti-discrimination law on transgender rights. 49% of respondents said they would keep the law, while 37% said they would vote to repeal it. And 13% said they were undecided. This was a Suffolk University poll. The margin of error was 4.4%. If those 13% go with the 37%, then it gets repealed. If any of that 49% doesn't turn out to vote, it gets repealed. So there are a few problems with this particular, it's technically called a veto referendum. It's not like a normal question. One of the concerns here is that the wording is confusing. You have to vote yes on the veto referendum if you want to keep protections for trans folks. So this is one of those questions where you're going to have to actually read the text a day of, or have read it before and remember, I'm just voting yes here. You really have to actually read it. And if someone goes in there and they don't read it carefully, there's the potential that they'll vote no because they think that that's don't repeal. No. No is repeal the law. There is an organization called Keep Mass Safe, and they said, oh, there's a lot of misinformation about it. What we are saying is to repeal the law so that the legislature can start over to make a law that provides accommodations for everyone and protects everyone. The issue with that is it tends to be protects cis people, protects, air quotes everywhere here. And accommodations often mean, here you guys get a trans restroom. So you're talking about either building new or rebranding and saying, yes, there is that other restroom and you can't use ours. You can't use the regular normal people, the cis restrooms. You can't use those. You have to use your special one. So you're being outed as trans if you comply. If you don't comply, you risk people calling the police on you like they do now, yada yada. Everything about this repeal idea is wrong. I watched this bill pass in 2016. I was at work and I put on the live stream of this particular session and I watched. I watched plenty of mostly older white men argue that this is somehow about cis women's safety. Somehow the women who say, I do feel safe and I want these other people to also feel safe and be safe. The key is be safe. Get ignored. Hello from Keolis. So the women's safety angle often turns out to be kind of this self-serving thing that's based in hate or that's based in one or two people saying something. It always seems to be old white men who are arguing about it and not the women who are allegedly going to be affected. I should note that when I say cis women, I am kind of including myself and kind of not. I have identified as gender queer for the last 10 or 12 years. I tend to be perceived in the cis het white woman demographic. So I'm coming at this from a queer angle, but from the angle of someone who tends to pass for better or for worse as cis het. If you remember the story of Kelly Herron out of Washington State, she famously was attacked by a sex offender in a women's restroom while she was out on a run. And she beat the shit out of the guy. Hero. And to note, this guy was not dressed up as a woman or in any way trying to take advantage of trans protection laws. He, as most male sex offender types do, just busted into that restroom and waited for a woman to come along. The hazy threat that is floated by all of us every time seems to be that men are going to dress up as women and break into restrooms, as though men do not already just break into women's restrooms without dressing up. There's this perceived, it's like, it's not even about trans women. They'd be fine. What we're worried about is these other people. These bad men who aren't trans women. See, we're not transphobic. We don't have any problems with trans women. No, we have problems with cis men who will dress up as women to go into bathrooms. We've had issues with men committing violence against women in all kinds of areas long before any trans protection laws existed. Making bathrooms safer for trans women isn't going to suddenly make sex offenders bolder. They're already bold. They already attack women. Those are cis men. Those are men who attack women, not transgender women. Transgender women are women. They're more likely to get attacked by a male sex offender in a women's bathroom. So Kelly Herron was attacked by a sex offender who had made no attempt to disguise himself as a woman to take advantage of protections to get into that bathroom. He was just a guy who waited for her and attacked her, and she beat the living hell out of him. And an anti-trans group tried to co-opt her story and say, this is why we can't let trans women in bathrooms. And they introduced a question there as well. And Kelly Herron's response to that was, to the people behind I-1552, I say, not today, motherfucker. I refuse to allow anyone to use me and my horrific sexual assault to cause harm and discrimination to others. Kelly Herron got attacked by a man in a bathroom and said, no, that is not the same as a trans woman, first of all. And second of all, no, I don't feel less safe if trans women who are women have access to women's restrooms. She is the example everyone gives. This theoretical woman who got attacked by a man in a bathroom. Well, it does happen. It happens when cis men attack women. There is no epidemic of trans women attacking cis women. There is no epidemic of cis men dressing up like trans women to get into women's bathrooms to assault women. No, there are cis men installing cameras in the bathrooms in their restaurants. That just recently happened in Massachusetts. There are cis men, again, breaking into them. There aren't trans women doing these things. That's not, it's so far outside of the point. It's so far outside of the realm of things that actually happen that it is infuriating that we have to keep rehashing all of this and we have to keep arguing that these people should have the right to go to the goddamn bathroom. Now, if we want to talk actual safety concerns, trans people have actual safety concerns. First off, if you want to try to get trans women to use men's restrooms, what do you think is going to happen in there? We've already discussed the cis men issue. What do you think, too, if a trans guy, like the guy who was going into bathrooms and saying, hey, yeah, do I look like I belong in here? Especially if you're at that point of transition where you look like an assigned male at birth guy. What do you think is going to happen if that guy tries to use a bathroom with a bunch of women in it? He's going to get screamed out. He's going to get beaten with purses. Somebody's going to mace him. That's just, it's absurd. In 2015, the National Center for Trans Equality did a study. There were 27,715 respondents. That's about 2% of the U.S. transgender population. It found that 12% of transgender people were verbally harassed in bathrooms within the previous year. 1% were physically attacked in restrooms. And 1% were sexually assaulted in restrooms. 9% of respondents said that someone denied them access to a bathroom. 32% of respondents said they had limited their intake of food or drink to avoid needing to use a public restroom. And this is all within the previous year. Before the survey. This is not like in your life ever. This is within the previous year alone. 8% reported that they ended up with a medical issue because of avoiding restroom use, because of fear of assault, verbal or physical or sexual. Whereas You'd be hard-pressed to find an example of a man dressing as a woman to take advantage of trans protections to prey on cis women. Mysteriously, there exists no list of cis men dressing up as women to assault cis women in bathrooms. It doesn't happen. If men want to attack us, they attack us. They don't need to dress up. They'll put drugs in your drink at a bar. They'll put a camera in the stall. They'll just break into the bathroom and wait for you. The types of men who are going to do these things are going to do them whether there are trans protections bills in place or not. Trans bills have no bearing on what cis men do. But what they do is they protect trans women, especially, from assault. Trans men too. I'm not focusing on that because, again, the lawmakers aren't focusing on that. The lawmakers are focusing on this angle of all the scared cis women who need to be protected because mean bad men might assault us in bathrooms if we let those trans women in. And it's not that we dislike trans women. It's not that we think that they're bad, but we have to protect the women and our daughters. Miss me. All the way miss me with that. I am more concerned with the safety of transgender women who are forced to use men's restrooms. Far more concerned about that than I am about my own safety in a restroom. People need to be able to use the bathroom. Unless you're going to start advocating that we just fully remove gender from restroom, from all of them. Not that there's a third one for those weirdos. Because that's exactly what you're saying when you say, oh, they need a separate one. Separate but equal's not a thing. We've been through this. We've been over this in history. Unless you're going to do that, unless you're going to say they're all gender, you need to let people use the restroom that coincides with their true gender. You need to not force people into the bathrooms that correspond with the gender they were assigned upon their birth. And all of this ignores things like intersex folks, which always seems to be the case when we try to define woman as uterus or woman as chromosome. We forget that there are folks who are born falling in the middle. It's not just about trans folks. It's about plenty of other folks who may or may not identify as trans. We just completely forget that they exist. We completely ignore that there are people who naturally fall between because we are so caught up in this binary. We are so caught up in this idea that there are two genders. That's it. That's done. And also they should correspond to your biological sex. No. Demonstrably no. Historically no. We can find examples of folks not identifying as the gender that they were typed with when they were born throughout history. It's not some new phenomenon like we're acting like it is. And in 2018 in Massachusetts, the butt of every joke about being coastal elites and so progressive and all of that. In this state, we might vote against protections for trans people. In 2018. This is also part of why the coastal elites narrative pisses me off, because where I grew up and the whole swath of that area went for Trump. Plenty of places in this state went for Trump. We're not in some loving liberal bastion where everyone's progressive and no one's homophobic and bad things never happen. No, but all kinds of terrible things happen. But it's 2018. And when we legalized gay marriage in 2004, May 17th, 2004, I was so excited. Because I got to live in a state where if I wanted to marry a woman, which I thought was a possibility for a long time, which could still be a possibility in the future, God knows, I lived in a state where we had decided that was okay. And now, 14 years later, I'm finding that it might not be okay for trans people to use the bathroom here. I don't know how to conclude this. I've had a lot of conversations in the last almost 2 years now trying to convince people that they should care about other people. And that's what it really comes down to. I don't know how to say, you should want other people to have health care. You should want other people to be able to get married. You should want other people to be able to use the bathroom. I don't know anymore how to try to communicate to people that they should care about other human beings. My hope is that at least by talking about this, I've given you some understanding that the alleged threats we keep hearing about are overblown, and that trans people are much more likely to be the victims of violence if we force them to use bathrooms that don't correspond to their true gender, and instead force them into facilities that align with the gender they were assigned at birth. I don't know what else I can tell you. I don't know what else I can say, except please vote yes on this veto referendum. Because voting yes on the referendum means yes, you want to keep the protections in place that we put in with SB 2407 in 2016 and that our Republican governor signed into law. Please vote yes. Please keep these protections in place. Please understand that if you don't, you are hurting women and men and people in general. You're hurting trans people. You're hurting the folks who love trans people. You're not helping women. Please make sure that you get out and vote in November. I know we're all really hyped about the whole blue wave thing, but I think even plenty of people who consider themselves progressives get a little too caught up in the women's safety narrative. And I worry that even if we get that blue wave, this is still going to be too close of a vote. There are plenty of well-documented statistics about how LGBTQ folks are more likely to suffer from depression, that we're more likely to commit suicide due to the years of bullying that many of us face over it. Please think about that. Please try to think about the reality of this situation. Please try to think about the fact that trans folks are the ones who are likely to be victims if we repeal this bill, and that women as a whole are not more likely to be victims if we keep protections for transgender folks. Please don't let the fear-mongering get to you. Don't let the scare tactics get to you. Don't let the hate get to you. Vote yes to keep these protections in place. Please. We've had them for almost 2 years. As you can easily find, nothing has gone wrong in that time. These people were opponents of the original bill who continued to oppose it after it passed. This isn't because something went wrong and people are now saying we should repeal that. They've been saying it since the law itself went into place. It's not a new push. It's not because anything bad has happened. In the last 2 years, all we've done is let trans people use restrooms and ensure that if someone tries to not let them, tries to discriminate against them, they can take action. They can say, no, I'm legally protected here. All we've done is legally protect trans people and give them an easier time. And nothing has happened in the last 2 years. There's no horror story out there like these people are trying to pretend that there is. And I'm sorry if I've said anything that's terminologically incorrect. I, again, never record this early in the day. I don't tend to try to... I wrote up some notes and started recording this within an hour of being out of bed, to be honest, because I was just too upset about it. If I've misspoken in any way, if I've said anything that you take issue with, please feel free to call me on it. I'm just tired. Today and in general of the way that the world is right now. So I'm doing the best that I can to try to get something out there to convince other voters in Massachusetts that we need to vote yes to keep trans protections in November. I am sorry that this is long. I am sorry that I am not energetic at all, but please vote yes and leave any questions you have in the comments. Hate comments will be deleted. Thanks for watching. I hope you have an excellent day. Please just be decent to other people.